Good afternoon. My name is Joanne Music. I'm the Division Chief of the Sex Crime and Human Trafficking Division here at the Harris County District Attorney's Office. Thank you all for being here. We have the great actions by the Houston Police Department that resulted in some charges late yesterday for smuggling, and I'm going to give you a little bit of details on that, and I obviously want to recognize those that took part in this investigation and made these things happen. Yesterday, Houston Police Officer Chris Meade was on patrol looking for a suspect in a completely unrelated investigation. Because he was actively looking in the community, he became alerted to a box truck that was parked over in I believe it's the 7600 block of Harwin. Things just did not appear correct to him. There were two box trucks in the parking lot. He was already on alert. He started paying attention and just really realized that nothing seemed correct about this particular incident. As he entered the parking lot along with other police officers, there was some activity afoot, so people started moving around. This really drew his attention even more to the area. He was able to determine that the truck itself still had a very warm engine, as if it had just recently been driven there. He took a look around and noticed a lot of things that didn't seem correct. He noticed that there were padlocks, that there was no driver in the seat, and there was no apparent driver or other occupants around in a construction site where this truck should not have been. His fast thinking, his heroic activities as a first responder, checked things out, walked around, ended up opening the latch on the back of the truck because he could tell something just wasn't right about this truck. When he opened that truck, he was able to immediately identify 12 victims, women, men, children, one child, inside that truck, sweating, no food, no water, small amount of water that they were left with to share. Looked like they were on the verge of heat exhaustion. Quick thinking, he was able to get them out and realize that these were undocumented immigrants that were being potentially smuggled or trafficked into the country. With his quick thinking, he was able to get Homeland Security out there, get other members of the Houston Police Department out there, and determine what had happened. In the process of all of this, three defendants were identified there on property. I believe you have all of those names, but Priscilla Perez Beltran, Adela Alvarez, Nelson Cortez Garcia. Those three individuals were there and spoke to the police after being detained as they attempted to get away. He was able to contact building management for the buildings and the property there. He was able to review surveillance video from that location and determine that these individuals, the defendants, had been in and around that property for the good part of the day, and in and around that truck, some getting in the truck, some moving around the truck, and obviously were there because of the truck and for no other reason. There was no other activity going on in that parking lot. So he was able to determine that these individuals were responsible, at least in some part, for the smuggling of these 12 individuals that were inside the truck. He obviously, contacted everyone that he could. The individuals were interviewed. They were taken immediately down to the police station where they were able to get food, water, get in some air conditioning. They had EMS check them out, make sure they were okay, and then obviously they were interviewed. Each of those people had paid, either themselves or someone on their behalf had paid money for them to come into the United States. This led to our office filing the charges on each of the three suspects for smuggling of persons. This is an enhanced charge. Typically, smuggling is a third-degree felony. It's enhanced in this case in one count because there was a minor involved. So smuggling of a minor becomes a second-degree felony, punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Smuggling of a person where the instance appears to be likely to cause serious bodily injury or death leads to an upgrade as well to a second degree up to 20 years in prison. Each of these individuals, all 12 of them, faced severe consequences. They face serious bodily injury or death. We all know the heat in Houston. This was by all accounts, an 85, 90 degree day yesterday. Heat index much higher. Inside that unventilated, unair conditioned cargo van or cargo truck, temperatures exceeded well over 100 degrees. Each of those people risked their lives, and Officer Meade was able to save each one of them by getting them out of that truck before anything fatal happened. So these three defendants face 3 counts. They could face 12 counts apiece, one for each of the victims, but we have filed 3 counts, and they each remain in custody with a $300,000 bond, and we expect them to appear in court tomorrow morning. At this point, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Anderson from the Houston Police Department. She's in charge of human trafficking and other trafficking, and she's going to give you a little bit of details from the Houston Police Department side.
My name is Jessica Anderson. I'm the lieutenant over the Human Trafficking Unit within the Vice Division of Houston Police Department. ADA Music kind of summed up all the facts. I just want to reiterate that human trafficking and human smuggling are a big deal in the city of Houston. Officer Meade did a fantastic job of being aware of his surroundings and identifying a situation that was not right. He did a great job notifying those that needed to be notified and followed through with the investigation, thereby saving 12 people's lives. He needs to be commended for the work that he did in recognizing the situation, and he did a great job and shows how important this is to the Houston Police Department.
Is that all you have right now? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, too, what Lieutenant Anderson has said. Officer Meade is to be commended for his actions. He was hyper aware and hyper vigilant yesterday on what would have otherwise been a routine patrol day. And so I just want to take a moment and tell him thank you very much. I was so overwhelmed by the phone call that he made to our office yesterday, and then I got to follow up with him, and he really cared about the situation. He really cared about these individuals who were being smuggled. So thank you very much. And we have Homeland Security. Yes.
If there's any questions.
Well, you want to do questions now?
Yeah, just a question.
Okay. Do we have any questions at this point?
What country were they from?
All Latin American countries, variety across the 12 victims.
I know that sometimes they're trafficked for labor, sometimes they're trafficked for sex. Do you have any idea what the goal was?
We are still looking at that. We're still actively investigating this case. We cannot say at this point if it was precisely labor, precisely sex trafficking, but we do know that oftentimes those that are smuggled into the country are exploited in a number of ways. So we are looking into that.
So the 2 males caught charged with basically bringing them in for sexual purposes?
Just 2 females and a male.
All of them are charged?
All 3 are charged with smuggling of persons.
But
there is no enhancement for any type of sexual abuse at this time.
Okay, so at this point you don't have any evidence that any of the women involved in this or the child, 14-year-old girl?
16-year-old girl, I believe.
Had been sexually assaulted.
At this point, we're still investigating. Those charges have not been brought.
And how many suspects got away?
We are continuing the investigation. We believe there could be others involved. I don't know that anybody in particular got away, but
Videotape shows at least 1, 2, I think.
But there are potentially other suspects, and we are continuing to follow those leads.
We'll get the video.
We are not releasing the video or any evidence at this time. We will address that as this case unfolds. But we are continuing an active investigation, so we're not ready to release that evidence at this time.
What does that mean exactly?
It means we're still working.
Right, but you could release that video without endangering your investigation.
Not if it would cause certain people to flee the country or flee the jurisdiction. So no, it could cause the investigation to derail.
And you think it would cause somebody?
I think it could.
You're not aware of how many people got away on the video? And the video shows at least 2 getting away. You don't?
I'm not going to say that the video is all-encompassing and includes everything. You're making an assumption from the video, and I'm not willing to make those assumptions at this point. Is there any other questions?
The 12 undocumented immigrants, where are they right now?
They are in custody through Homeland Security.
And will they stay here pending a trial?
That is still to be determined. We don't know yet. This is all just unfolding
Well,
as
maybe
of
Homeland
yesterday.
Security could tell us what the process is for that, because I'm under the impression they immediately go back. Is that wrong?
Is that something you would like to
No,
answer?
sir, that's not necessarily true. They could
What-
be used as material. It's
What
just
would
not
routinely
material.
happen in this case?
In this particular case, in regards to your question, they could, they're needed obviously for material witness testimony as it pertains to them being brought into the country illegally.
All of them?
More than likely, yes. Mhm.
So that you expect they would stay here until the case is closed?
Well, we're still investigating, as the ADA has stated, and we're still taking witness statements. So a lot of that is really going to be based on what's been derived from their statements.
Could we hear from Officer Meade?
I'll defer for him. He's had a long day. He's been really busy. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Human trafficking's gone on for some time, will continue to go on. Is there anything that citizens can do to maybe be on the lookout for this type of activity that may help law enforcement?
Well, in situations like this, kind of like what Officer Meade saw, he saw a box truck that was either just still running or had just been turned off that didn't look like it was in the right place. Obviously, I don't want to say call the police whenever you see a box truck in Houston, but be aware of your surroundings. If something looks out of place, let us know. Just be vigilant. If you see something, say something. That's the standard line, and it works for something like this too.
So
He was looking for a box truck on another case, right?
He was doing some investigation on another thing, yes, and came across a box truck that looked not right.
So that strip center is closed on Sundays. Is there the possibility that you would be looking at the videotape from previous Sundays to see if this location has been used in the past to try and link these defendants to additional cases, given that there's anecdotal evidence that that same type of rental truck has been here before?
Yeah, that's something that we'll consider in our investigation. This is all very new. Obviously, it happened yesterday, so we're just at the beginning, but that is something that we will probably look into.
Did the victims realize how much they paid to this woman?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Do you know how many hours they were out in the truck? In the heat?
I believe they were there for 12 hours,
They were in the truck?
in the truck for 12 hours.
What time did Officer Meade find him?
Approximately 9:20, 9:15, I think it was.
Okay. The truck pulled up there was at 8:50, looks like. That doesn't mean they were in the truck for 12 hours, but they were in the truck somewhere else probably, right?
Perhaps.
Well, do you know?
As I said, the investigation is just beginning. Poor Officer Meade has had limited sleep, so we're putting all the pieces together as we go.
On one of the charges, it says he's facing human smuggling became sex assault. Is that?
All of the charges read, and I have a copy of them here. Each one of the charges reads, each one is charged with intent to obtain a pecuniary benefit, knowingly encourage and induce a victim to enter and remain in the United States in violation of federal law, and in that particular instance, concealing and harboring that complainant who was a minor. The other two charges on each defendant read essentially the same, concealing and harboring each of the complainants in a manner that created a substantial likelihood that the complainant would suffer serious bodily injury or death. None of the information or charging instruments that we have filed mention sexual abuse. I think there is a coding error in the computer system, so when you look at the district clerk site, it says sexual abuse. That is not what the charge itself reads.
And that's what we're looking at. Okay. So talk a little bit about these people paid to be here, but I mean, their well-being obviously to these people is just not a concern. I mean, is that
Well,
common?
that's very common. Typically those who exploit others, who smuggle them, who traffic them, they really don't care about the well-being of their victim, the person they're exploiting. That is simply a means of making money for them. It's a cost of doing business. For most smugglers, if one or two dies, oh well, it's a cost of doing business, and maybe we lost a little money. But they don't seem to be too concerned about their welfare.
And the minor, you said 16,
Yes, ma'am.
and you know if she was a family or is there any other information?
I don't have that information.
Do you know if the truck was rented, and if so, where it was rented?
It does appear to be a rental truck.
And do you know where they rented it?
I do not have the paperwork on that. I know that the Houston Police Department's been tracking down all that paperwork.
Do you know where they were headed?
I do not know that. Any other questions?